have to get them to go inside more. Like just I can give them all the strategies, like you said, but they can't get it done without the self-exploration, the self-awareness, like, you know what I mean? Like some of that. And I learned that like that's completely in my design is what I'm supposed to be teaching people is I have like 4 of the 5 or 5 of the 7, I forget the number of the love gates. I have like all the love gates basically. And one of them is my life purpose. So like I'm supposed to be teaching people how to like know and love yourself as the thing to like go do what you need to do. You know what I mean? Like it's fascinating.
Right, so you're gonna love this.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands.
Welcome to Build an Iconic Life podcast. I'm your host, Chris Whitehead, and this podcast is dedicated to help you build a life with zero regrets by focusing on how you have everything you need to stand up, stand out, and live life on your terms. Let's dive right in. So everybody, I'm on with Stacy Norris. She is a longtime serial entrepreneur. She's an amazing coach and mentor, and we're getting ready to chop it up. So I created a program in 2012 called Activating My Purpose. Napoleon Hill not only wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich, which most people know about. He also wrote a book called The Success Principles, which is like 1,600 pages long.
Okay.
Henry Ford read the book and decided that the average human was not allowed, like it's an elitist kind of thing. Like average people can't read this book. It has too many success principles in it. Right. So that's all I needed to hear. He got it taken off shelves and all sorts of stuff, but there are copies around. So I read it, and inside of it, there is a way that you write in the present tense to activate your purpose. And you're using your reticular activating system, which is simply your unconscious autopilot for your airplane, right? It can hold about 7 things in there at a time. But if you speak in the present tense, you state what it is you want, you state your purpose of what you're willing to give back, and you give yourself permission to do that in that statement, and then you read it to yourself over and over and over again, that puts it into the reticular activating system. So I never ever see a black Suburban. I go buy a black Suburban, and then all I see are blacks.
They're everywhere.
That's your RAS, your reticular activating system. So I created that program and I went through it. I also did the whole Jack Canfield. I put a green 2-foot by 3-foot poster board beside my bed. I put $1 million in each corner and the Statue of Liberty in the middle. And every time I fluffed the covers, it would fall over every morning. So I had to physically touch it, put it back. That's all I paid attention. Well, that year is when we went to $1 million. Now I'm in $1 million in my pocket. So I learned something from that, but we grossed $1 million that year. And I started realizing how powerful the unconscious mind is. So we took Activating My Purpose. And I just teach people that you think you have 5 senses, you have more than 5 senses. So I teach them all this stuff, and I just take them through the process. And then I have them put it on their phones, and they just play it barely audibly all night long while they're asleep for 30 days. And it starts to lock it in. And Robin and I do something where we put our intentions on it. She has a little African bowl, and it's on our vanity. We have a double vanity, and I just put my hand on it every morning. And it's a kinesthetic reminder, right? But this stuff works. It really, really works. And I love teaching people that because it drives to one thing we talked about the other day, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So I knew before I created that program, I needed to find my purpose. I love people. I love life. But it's like everything's kind of doing this, and I don't see where's that going toward kind of thing, right? So I literally called my little brother up and I said, "You have 3 words to describe me. That's all you can say." And I read this in a book. It's like, if you don't know, why don't you go ask people that are really close to you? And he immediately said, "Dude, that's simple. You are a hub of love." He goes, "You're relentless at it. You are a hub of relentless love." And the moment he said it, Stacy, I like started crying. All the goosebumps got up, and I realized that's been my biggest problem. I've been loving on people, but then I get really resentful.
Yes.
Because I wasn't creating proper boundaries, and I also was unwilling to confront them with my boundaries. And here I was not living in my purpose, or trying to live in my purpose, but being jaded by it. And then, so I put that into my purpose statement, which is actually in the office in the next room. I'll show it to you. I've carried the card ever since. And I just started loving on people. And then that's when I got into the law of reciprocity. That's when I started understanding that I don't have to worry about whether you give back to me or not.
Yes.
But am I going to plant good seed and good soil? And we talked about that the other day. And it's kind of my purpose on life to help people find their purpose, because once people have that, they will want to become autonomous. They will want to become a master at it. You do not have to motivate them. It's all intrinsic motivation at that point, because it's been my experience too. And I'm also willing to accept my own flaws and overcome them now because I want to be better.
Yes.
It was a total switch in me. Have you ever done a process, anything like that? Or
Yes. So
what was yours?
I will say the love for others is definitely something I relate with. I consider myself a recovering people pleaser and overgiver. It's a lifelong recovery, but I'm much further down the road than I used to be. I used to tell myself, I'm genuinely fueled by helping other people, by giving to other people.
Okay.
And in a sense, I am. But I reached that point, as you mentioned, of saying that this is what I love, but then actually feeling resentful about not having any energy left for myself or any time left for myself. So I feel like I had to kind of go through that growth a little bit also. And I think where you had this light bulb moment about purpose, I definitely resonate with that, as far as knowing your purpose changes your life, your business, if you have one, changes it all exponentially, because you have just more clear path of where you're going and why you're doing it. I think for me, a similar but related probably thing is like the whole self-love thing. Like I still want to help people, but I've realized where I can help them more is by showing them love, but also like teaching them how to love themselves. It's like a longer, sustainable thing, instead of me like giving the Band-Aid. You know what I mean? It's like teach a man to fish type concept. You know what I mean? Like I can make them feel good temporarily by doing it for them. But if I can teach them how to understand themselves and love themselves more, it's exponential. And I feel like that's where I can make a bigger impact. Like that, it's just the more it's sustainable, I just feel like I envision that there's just depth to go down.
What are some of the things that you do to help people do that? Is it all conversational, or do you have?
No, I do. I feel like self-awareness is the first part. I do it. Some of it's conversational.
So are you a mirror at first a little bit? Like I hear you saying, or that kind of thing. Like how do you help them with self-awareness? Because there are a lot of people that say that they want help, and then you help them with self-awareness and they get upset with the awareness.
I think it's a comment for me. It's a combination.
Okay.
It's a combination of conversation and me, little nuggets, and me presenting back like, is it possible that is actually you maybe people pleasing? Or is it possible that you feel like you have to do that, but is it possible that for some reason, you feel like you have to, or you should, but what if you didn't? Like what would happen if you didn't? And give them the opportunity to kind of explore that a little bit. Like I like to help people figure out, and if you're doing X that's causing a problem for you, how does it make you feel? You know what I mean? And can you, how do you want to feel about it? And can we find a way to generate the way you want to feel about it and make it happen? But sometimes that conversation evolves to where they can have a light bulb moment and realize like, actually, like, I'm never going to feel great about doing X or not doing X.
That's a whole different conversation.
Whatever it is. So it's sometimes realizing loving ourselves, I think, and having this awareness is about what you're doing and not doing, so I think a lot of it's conversational. I also do love assessments too. I like assessments as a guide. I'm not a like all in, this is the Bible type of assessment follower, but in my own experience through, say, the Colby and human design, Enneagram, some of the assessments out there, in my own experience, sometimes you see something, you can't unsee it. So if something you see in one of the assessments aligns with maybe a struggle that you've had, you realize, okay, like I'm kind of wired that way. So it just gives you a different, that maybe it's not a problem that
Yeah.
I'm this way.
Yeah.
So it might be just something that's less strong for me, or something that I need to work through, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. Like, this is me, this is the way I'm wired. So let's just figure it out, how to make it different, instead of trying to stuff it like it doesn't exist.
Do you know what your Colby is?
8751.
8751. So I am 4.
I think 8751. Now that I say that out loud.
4393.
Okay.
So an 8 means that you do a lot of research.
Yes.
87, the second Colby,
The follow through, I believe.
the follow through, which means you actually do it as well.
Yeah.
You're middle of the road for quick start, which just means you analyze and make sure before you're more that way.
Yes.
And then what's the final one?
The one is the hands-on, tangible, like building.
Do you repair it, or do you conceptualize the repair?
Yes.
So one of the things that I learned, like, so I'm a 7 or a 9 on 7 or 9 on quick start. I can't remember.
Okay.
So all my life, like, and I told you this the other day, like, if you have a good idea, I don't mean to be rude, but I'll just be like, sounds great. And I just start going, like, I want to go do it.
Yeah.
I thought my whole life, you're horrible at listening. You're done. No, I'm just, and then I found out most entrepreneurs are a 7 or above on quick start.
Yeah.
They're just quick to make those decisions. And for the first time, instead of feeling bad about who I am as a person, I just started using it to my benefit. And one of the ways that I did is to make sure that I don't put another 7 right beside me when we make decisions. I need somebody that's a 2.
Yeah.
Maybe not 2.
I think it's huge in that, in who you go to talk through problems for yourself, and who you put on your team, especially when you start building a team of support for yourself. As far as in a business in particular, but even in your life, like if you think about, like, knowing what some of the people that you in your family and how you interact, it can help with conflict resolution. It helps with so much, just to see it. And I'm not like I said, like a dive all in, and I like to take bits and pieces of different things and kind of and I don't automatically go there from the start with someone.
That's your one at the end, though.
Yes.
So you're high on the first category means that you become well versed in what you're doing, and your one at the end is, let me help you figure out how you're going to get it done.
Yes, I like to bring all these pieces of information together and then help the person make some decisions for themselves, support them through. Like, I can give suggestions, thoughts to consider, help them make some decisions for themselves. Like, I like to create that space to help them make the decisions, like have the light bulb moments, you know what I mean, go forward. And so once that happens, then I can often give some strategies to, like, do what you're trying to do or whatever. But I used to go strategy first automatically, but then I started realizing how different strategies work better for different people. And if they don't know and understand themselves enough, then they have a hard time going out and actually implementing, even if it is the perfect strategy for them. They're in their own way.
Yeah.
So we get in our own way, and so we have to, I think that just that awareness of ourselves just can really unlock, like, potential.
So I think that there are a ton of coaches out there that they like the idea of being a coach, but they've taken a certification maybe to be a coach, but it doesn't mean that they're a great coach. And a lot of that has to do with the experience level, and not just what they're coaching, but just experience level, right? So I want to kind of back up and let everybody know that you're not just a coach, because you started an entrepreneurial based business that is probably one of the strangest things. Like, I've been up here now for 15 or 16 years, and I've never met, like, you did what? And it's like, yeah. And it just kind of took off. And I'm like, it makes sense, but it's so counterintuitive that it would make sense. Do you mind telling everybody, tell everybody a little bit about what your journey has been as an entrepreneur, and how you eventually became a coach?
Sure. So I started my first business 2017. Well, professionally, I worked in healthcare, evolved from clinical to like a department manager to, running a large medical practice. So that's kind of what I did professionally. I started looking into children's etiquette for my kids at some point. This was like 2016, 17.
Okay.
And I wanted a program for my own kids and I couldn't find one. So I decided to just do it. So I did a little bit of training. Some of it was very inherent for me and natural in the way I grew up and what I had been exposed to, but I wanted to formalize it a little bit, put a little shape to it. So I did some training. I did actually do a certification, and I started teaching children's etiquette. I thought initially, oh, this investment, is about what I'd spend. Maybe if I put my kids through a program, I'll just do this for my kids and my friends. Well, it kind of took off, and it was great. I absolutely loved it. Unfortunately, I was at a period in my family situation where I had to realize and recognize, as even though it was going, like, how did it feel for me as it was taking off? And it wasn't feeling great because the problem was other people's kids are available on nights and weekends, which is when I wanted to be with my own kids. So I decided to kind of put that to the back burner. So I knew at that point from starting that I had kind of caught the entrepreneurial bug a little bit because once I started realizing it was becoming a thing, I started networking and kind of treating it like a business a little bit. And so at that point I thought, okay, how can I help? I've always had a little bit of a soft spot for this busy, like I've always worked as a mom, but I advocated for flexibility in certain things for myself that made it feel a little more manageable for me than what I observed it feeling like, I think, for other people. So then I decided I'll do a personal concierge business. So I was, my thought was I'll help, moms, working moms, busy couples, whatever, with some of the things that their family needs so that then they can spend more time as a family when they're not at work instead of doing all the things, running errands, managing projects in the home, whatever. So I started that. I realized that even though I'm really good at those things in my own family and in my own home, I didn't actually love so much doing it for other people, like the physical doing of it.
Sure.
I loved giving them like ideas and helping them figure out what would work for them, but I didn't really want to do it. So that evolved into a little bit more consulting. This was around COVID-ish time. People started reaching out to me and saying, I know you used to, run a medical practice and you're kind of doing this consulting admin type thing, like, would you support businesses? So then I was consulting heavily in operations as far as, setting up systems and all of that. That evolved into kind of where we were a minute ago. Sometimes I can help someone figure out the right system, but sometimes just the emotional intelligence, the self-moderation, like handling all of that is not, if that's in the way, you can't always implement the best systems. So then I kind of got into the coaching side. I have a slew of, certifications. I am a certified director of operations. I am a certified life coach. But honestly, those at this point, I can honestly say those are just another piece. They're not the thing that helps me do what I do. I love to take all these bits and pieces of all of my personal experience and the things that I've learned and synthesize it together to kind of do things my own unique way and help people solve things in their own unique way. Like I don't follow a set process. In full honesty, the certifications were essential to me because of my own imposter syndrome and thinking that I couldn't do it without a certification than they were in teaching me. They elevated concepts that I had already and things that I already do and gave them names and shapes a little bit, but I could have fully done what I'm doing without that.
So, I was previously married and she's an amazing woman. And, in 2004, this idea about flipping homes was starting to ramp up. I knew it. So 2005, she was at least willing to entertain the idea. So we went on foreclosure.com.
Okay.
I think I did first, right?
Probably, right.
And I'm looking at all these things, but they're behind this paywall. I don't want to do it. I just want to keep trying to find it. Well, somehow she signs up, and I think it was like $20 a month or something just to get the
info.
The info. But what you also get is on their call list. So I'm talking about wanting to flip homes, and she's like, All right, here's the deal. I'm willing to flip homes with you, but only if we buy the certification course from foreclosure.com. And I was like, how much is it? $6,000. It's not today. That doesn't sound like a lot of money to me.
But at the time, I'm sure it was a lot. Yeah, I feel it. I've made those decisions too.
It was a week's worth of payroll.
I've made those decisions.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, again, I'm a quick start. So I'm like, I'll figure it out. Long story short, I can't really, it was 2 weeks or 2 months, but I think, no, they spoke to us every 2 weeks for several months. For $6,000, what they did is they read us a book. And I could tell the guy was reading the book.
Yeah.
So we paid $6,000 for a book. But it gave her the confidence to have faith in me.
Yeah.
So
it was an important, necessary step of the process.
Well, and there are a couple things that were learned. I needed a realtor. I needed a lawyer. I had to build a team.
Yeah.
And it at least told me, I probably could have gone and just found the book.
Right.
But I was 32, 33 years old, trying to do construction, like ignorant to how to do that kind of research. Internet was a brand new thing, boys and girls,
Yes.
But like you said, I think sometimes people lean too heavily on all the letters after their name, when the truth is if you're just an authentic, real human and you go do real stuff.
Yes.
And you care, that's how you can help somebody. Like I tried that once. I'm not saying it won't work for you, but let me tell you about my experience with it.
Yes.
Does that relate? And I like that because of one thing you just said. You help other people find their solution. Coaches go, okay, you're going to run 10 yards this way, take a right, take 3 steps, the ball will be there. That doesn't always happen. A coach will just tell you need to run faster, smarter, harder. A mentor, on the other hand, will say, maybe we don't go 10 yards. Maybe there's a reason you can't. So a mentor helps somebody find a solution that is uncommon, that is sometimes unseen, that is outside of the periphery of this. And I like that because for me, when I've been coached, as I'm being coached, I'm always asking 7 questions. Like, well, what if this, what if this, what if, in my head.
Yes.
I need someone that can handle that kind of question asking and not get flustered by me, because the moment I see you get flustered by me,
yes,
you can't really help me. And at the same time, I don't want you to be rude to me because I want to ask all these questions, because I've spent my whole life not asking anybody anything.
Right.
So now that I'm paying you the $3,000 a month, I'd really like to ask this question.
My questions answered.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I came through the same evolution you did. Like, I would do the coaching thing, and then all of a sudden it was like, that doesn't feel authentic to keep telling that person that. And I don't really know why. And that's when I started taking assessments too. And I started learning, as an example, our son is a pure manifester, right? Not a manifesting generator, not a generator. Well, one of the things about manifestors is that they don't get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and work 14 hours a day and have the energy the next day to do the same thing. I do.
Yes.
But I'm looking at our son and I'm going, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with him.
Exactly.
He's not made like me.
Yes.
I can take physical punishment over and over and over again and just keep on ticking.
Yes.
He'll get burnt out in an hour of doing that kind of stuff. And so now I'm trying to stuff a round peg in a square hole. And on top of it, I'm ridiculing, in my own mind, ridiculing, judging this human, which is not helping them. It's against my purpose in life. And I'm wondering why everything's going to shit.
Yes.
So these are where those assessments can help, is to become, for me at least, less judgmental. Have you ever done DISC?
I have never done DISC.
You should do DISC.
That's one I've never done.
So it's a fun. Have you ever heard of Wise Hire?
No.
Okay, so Wise Hire, you should do some research on. It's like $200 a month. It helps people, employers, right? It helps you write the right kind of hiring shtick. It puts it into a funnel so the people have to follow it.
Okay.
It spits out their resumes. It tells you if they've done the thing. It gives them a free DISC assessment, which is normally like $300 a pop.
Yeah.
All this for $200 a month.
Okay.
And instead of you trying to post it on Indeed, it'll go and post these things for you and knows how to do it better with AI and stuff.
Yes.
Somebody very much like you, he's one of my best friends named Tom Keenan. He's a fractional COO and huge integrator guy, right? He started using this with all of his clients down in Texas. And like, if you have people that are like, I can't find the right employees, which is like literally everybody, go research Wise Hire.
Yeah.
They're really, really good for the money that you spend. It's incredible. Plus, you can take the DISC assessment.
Right.
But the DISC assessment is another one of those tools where so D is your ability to be direct. So a lot of entrepreneurs are very, very, very direct.
Like, yeah.
And
I've heard that. High D. I've heard that.
High D.
I know a little bit about it. I've just never taken it.
I is this interpersonal thing. So high I's are politicians and salespeople, right?
Okay.
S is more like a school teacher. So you're kind of laid back, but you're still kind of selling, teaching people things. And C is high compliance, right? So I'm a 60D. I'm a 99I. I'm a 30S.
Okay.
And I'm a 13C, right?
Okay.
I would imagine your C is probably pretty high.
Okay.
Right? I would imagine your D is middle. I would imagine your I is pretty high, which is what makes it. So you and I are like really, really similar, but you have completely.
But also, yes.
You have completely different ways of getting, which is it's strange because that's normally not true, but I think it means your I is probably pretty high.
Yes. And I think another example of how the assessments, you know what I mean, like help. I think again, it's information. I feel like you can't unsee it. And sometimes when you see it, you're like, oh, that makes this make sense. And I feel like I've taken this huge, you know, I've gone on this journey of switching from being the, you know, in the high integration role in helping people as far as being the integrator in other people's businesses and so forth. And now kind of being more in this mentorship role. Yeah. And part of it was, I think, because, you know, other people told me I was really good at the operational part. And I am, and that's all very strong in how I help people figure out strategies and systems that work for them. But in my human design as the manifesting generator, I'm kind of both sides. Like, I thought I was the do like generator. And I am to an extent, but I have this like manifester part of me that I think it was like there, but I kept telling myself, you know, but you're the one, like you're the doer. You're not the visionary. You're the this, not that. But then, you know, you see things in some of these assessments and sometimes you're not ready for it. Like you look at the assessment, you're like, that is not me. Okay. Like, and I would never try to, in my coaching, like if someone's open to the assessments and we include assessments in part of, you know, our working together, I would never like force someone down a road of a part of it that doesn't necessarily really resonate for them yet. But sometimes you can look at it and you're like, that doesn't resonate. And then you go back and look at it 6 months, 12 months down the road, and that information's the same, but you're different. And you see a different part of it jumps out at you that you're like, oh, okay. You know, like it just helps explain things, validate things, like light bulbs. It just helps, I think, with that part of helping someone transform.
So another part of the DISC assessment is your natural state, and then you're adjusted. And you're adjusted is when the stress hits.
Oh, so, that's interesting.
So the reason that I like these kinds of assessments is especially those of us that help other people. Like, so like I told you, I'm a 60D in my natural state. I'm an 80D in my stress state.
Ooh, that's really interesting.
Which means, and my I goes down, which means my people skills slow down, and my come here, I'm going to control this situation and make it, that shows up, right? That gives me the opportunity to start realizing, like, well, why is Robin upset with me? And it's her fault. It's her fault. She's no, how are you showing up?
Yeah.
What's going on in your life? And so it gives us these tools to self-reflect, which is what you said you first help people do.
Yes.
And what I've found is sometimes just going and taking a walk, having a deep breath, having a conversation with my higher power, whatever that means to me, just allows for the reset. The other thing that I learned, this is just a tip for all the guys out there. Most guys come home from work and then immediately start going and doing with their family too. Guys, if they give themselves just 20 minutes when they get home and their spouses allow them that 20 minutes, they can then come and be present. But a lot of guys are not aware of that, and they're not using this as a habit to just take your deep breath, take your business and warrior hat off.
Yes.
Because you don't want Chuck Spears at your wife. Take a deep breath and realize now it's family time. And Robin and I had to really work on that, because a lot of entrepreneurs also, we like to burn the candle at both ends, like 24 hours a day.
Yes.
And we think that everybody is just as enthusiastic about what we're doing as we are. And the truth is most people don't give two craps
Yes.
about what we're doing.
Yes.
And bringing that home can be one of the most toxic things that you could ever do. And I've learned it the hard way.
I see what you're saying a little bit in my husband. His favorite routine is to come home from work and work out for a little bit before like switching over. Like that's his transition, is to come home, maybe go for a run, do some weights, like a little bit of a transition there before going into, like I'm home now kind of a thing. So I definitely see that. That's his most balancing, nourishing, whatever word you want to use, routine for him. So I completely see that. And just understanding the dynamics too. I think it's so important. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of us, the conflict challenges, obstacles, whatever that we experience, we think that it's all external. But that's the circumstance, the whatever, the thing, it's there. But you change it. Like I talk with a lot of women about, figuring out work-life balance. Like they're motivated, they're high achieving, they want to do a lot of things, but they want to feel better or different while they're doing it. They want to feel less resentful. They want to feel balanced, whatever it is that they want to feel more of. And a lot of it is around like figuring out that a lot of us changing our life is about understanding like what we actually have the ability to choose, and what we can, what we can change on our own. It's through like understanding yourself and working through those things, like what am I doing that's contributing to this like contentious situation, where our default, I think for most of us, is to change the other person. It's like the stressful boss, the stressful spouse, like all of that. Like they are what they are. So you can either, have it be contentious or stressful or whatever the word is, ongoing. You can, choose to change the situation, and you can't necessarily change them. They can't change until they're ready to change, and maybe they never will be. So but you can change how you receive, you know what I mean, and how you let that impact you, and how you process that situation, and learn that it's not about you. And sometimes the things that frustrate you or annoy you about someone else, when you can realize that that's just the way they're wired, and it's different than the way you're wired, like you were talking about with you and Robin, like it just helps create such a different peace and potential. Like there's just so much more potential for both of you when you realize, I don't know, how these things come into play.
And I believe, it's the difference between reacting versus responding. And when I started studying that, well, so what is the difference between reacting and responding? Because they're like brother and sister, right?
Yes.
The difference is a response allows me to process first. A reaction is just the knee gut, right?
Yes.
And so the reason I read books, the reason that I have conversations, the reason that I chop it up with other people that do what I do and think about you don't do it exactly like I do it.
Right.
And it might just be one thing you say in the entire conversation that I go, as an example, we're on Friday, we're going to a personal development retreat.
Love it.
And one of the things, I'm getting on the call with the guy today because he wants to know what my intention is. And so over the last few days, I was thinking, well, maybe I should just I just spill my stuff to them and they'll tell me what my intention is. And my gut told me that's not right. And I was like, well, maybe if I just say something general, like I want to be better, no, that's not right. And so what I did is I just kind of gave it to God and went to bed last night. And I woke up at 5:00 this morning. I go, I know what my intention is. My intention is to raise my frequency and my vibration. That's what I want it to be, because that number one, I get to live in the moment. Number two, it allows me not to hold on to any result, because whatever result is supposed to show up is going. So I was trying to amalgamate all of this stuff, right?
Yes.
And I realized I could go down to a singularity. And if this is my intention, it'll be all encompassing. It'll start to attract more of the right people. It'll start to repel the wrong people. It'll start to get my mind aligned. And all of that came through unconscious programming by me not trying so hard to make something happen. And then the other thing I think about when we coach people, it's the same thing. Like, why am I coaching you? I want to make more money. That's not good enough.
Yes.
It's not
like
enough.
go like a few layers deeper. Why do you need more money?
Yeah.
And why that? And why that?
And so the
Like,
same thing with
yes.
reaction versus response. I had to have a why to respond before I was willing to even engage in the
Yes.
process that I need to respond instead of react. And that's what led to, there was a book called The Queen's Code. It's a very, very popular book, and it's actually meant for women to learn about men. And it's the code, because it's like, if you give it to the wrong woman, she's gonna use that,
like use it in the wrong way. Like
it literally says it in the
right.
book. But it's a rite of passage for women. See, women tend to be they talk about the meadow, because they're walking and they're like, oh, somebody ate that patch of strawberries and it made them sick. You're checking in with everyone. Guys, on the other hand, are chucking spears, right? And so, but a lot of times it was saying that a lot of times women treat men as bad women because they don't know any better. And so what it was helping give advice for is like, when your husband comes home, give him 20 minutes to reset. Husband, you have to take the time to reset. Now, I don't know how your husband came about it. It might just become a natural thing. But what I find for me is when I have the chance to take a deep breath and be a kid, doesn't matter what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll play golf on my iPad.
Yep.
Sometimes I'll
go
out in the yard, hit golf balls. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
But I need something that's not this thing that I'm trying to stab all day long to bring home meat for the family. Now I'm ready to listen to you give me the Meadow report. Because I really just asked you how your day was, and 45 minutes later, it's like, I didn't know that you had met Sally and Susan and Bobby, and like, and how are they related? They're not at all.
Yes.
Why are we talking about that? I thought you wanted to know how my day was. Yeah, that was like, was it good or was it bad? That's how guys kind of think. And girls are like, no, I thought you really wanted to know. You must not love me. No, I do love you. So there are all these, but that 20 minutes gives me the capacity to go, because it's not just Robin. It's then one kid and then another kid. And then by the end of that 45 minutes of each person talking, if you haven't, as a guy, taken the time to reset, you're kind of like, now I just want to drink and go to bed. I don't talk to anybody anymore.
Right.
And then we don't end up being present for the thing that we're doing all of the work for.
Right.
Whereas I believe ladies, on the other hand, intrinsically are kind of like, I know what I'm here for. It's these people and you.
Yes.
The rest of this is superfluous. And without these assessments, without this training, without knowing who you are, there is zero motivation on the other end, in my opinion, to discipline yourself to respond.
Yes. And I think just the self-awareness of realizing, you know what I mean, at the end of the day, like how did I feel today? How did today go? What worked? What didn't? You know, and starting
a lot of people don't do that.
And starting to see patterns in why you feel a certain, like I keep feeling resentful all the time, or feeling whatever it is all the time, and like figuring out, okay, well, what would change that, and starting to like have enough self-awareness to, you know, and figure out what is that self-awareness for you. You know, again, that's something else I feel like is different. Some people do great with journaling, just like dumping it all out and then looking back and seeing, okay, I'm seeing these patterns, and like identifying patterns and trends so that you can change them. And you know, where my husband, one of the things we used to talk about a lot is, like you're saying, that kind of like unwind a little bit. For him, as I mentioned, it's gets energy out. Exercise is unwind for him. For me, I exercise because I feel like it's good for me. And I want to be healthy, but I don't like enjoy exercise. You know what I mean? But I do what I need to do because I feel like it's part of my overall well-being and health that I don't want to neglect.
Sure.
But for me, like one thing that I started realizing is, you know, I've always been a meal planner, a prepper. Like I like to do all of that. Like this is, you know, hysterical. People laugh at me. I literally go to the grocery store with a paper. I have a shopping list separated out by departments on a clipboard on the front of my cart. And I just zip through the grocery store, like check.
Who are you?
I literally had a young boy at the cash register one day look at me, and I took it out of the cart and set it on the little counter there, so I could push the cart down to the gentleman doing the bagging. And he looks and he's like, wow, never seen anything like that before.
That's good.
But for me, it's I don't want to repeat the thinking. You know what I mean? Like the thinking. For me,
Sure.
I learned like I do better going to the store. It's like this section first, that section first. When I just put it all, so it saves me the mental capacity of having to like use my brain and thinking to do the same things over and over. So, you develop these strategies. And so I
Do
realized,
you know mine?
what's that?
I do 4.2 miles inside of that store.
Right.
I finally asked somebody.
Right. And I've done that in the past, but for me, some people love the like mosey of the grocery store, and so like, again, like I would never tell like someone that I'm working with, like, you need to grocery shop this way because this works for me and this is natural for me. That may not work for them. Not everyone's a meal prepper. Some people are literally wired to where they need to like make the decision on the fly, or otherwise they're not going to feel like satisfied and find it, you know what I mean? Like nourishing, whatever. But what I've learned about like, so all of these things, I've learned these little strategies to create what I've realized over time is more nourishing for me. I thought that I refueled by being out with other people. And I love being with other people. I do, there's an energy in the room in all of that, but I've realized that to nourish myself and actually refuel, I need quiet time.
Yeah, you're an introvert.
I'm an introvert.
Me too.
I never, like,
I never thought I was.
Never consider myself an introvert. And my husband's definitely an extrovert. And so, he's the kind of guy that on Mondays, he's like, all right, what do we have going on this weekend? And I was kind of like, I was hoping nothing. And he's like, oh, but for him, he doesn't get as much interaction with the other people through the week as I do in his line of work. So, but this is where you start realizing, okay, so I've realized, especially now that our youngest is getting ready to go to college, we have a lot more freedom on the weekends. We have less kids' sports and things, and she's working and doing her own thing a lot. So we have more, we're like 50% empty nesters now. So I'm starting to see like, like this is a different season. Like I talk to people about seasons. This season of your life, how you do things may not be the same as the next one. And I started realizing, okay, I have control over my schedule. Like I need to choose to create more time during the week, like a day when he's at work or somewhere during the week. Where can I meal prep? You know what I mean? Make my grocery list, do these things that I've always considered like the Sunday things. You know what I mean? For me, why can't I just shift that to a different day? Because as long as I have the day, it doesn't have to be Sunday. I just need it to be somewhere. And then that frees me up to when he wants to do something on Saturday and Sunday on the weekend. I'm like, okay, without feeling like crap on Monday morning because I didn't get my like unwind, slow thinking time. So it's just the ways that knowing yourself, and I feel like there's such great strategies out there, and people tend to go to the books, the workshops, all of that. It's all valuable, but I think it's the first part where like you've read a lot of books, but then you've learned to take that extra step and synthesize it for yourself. And that's great when people can do that, but sometimes people can't do that synthesizing step on their own.
That's why you're here.
Exactly. That's where I feel like me, like people who love to do the kind of work that we do. That's where I feel like we can make a difference. Like they're right there sometimes, and
they reached out.
Yes.
So the dawning of awareness is there.
Yes.
But the muscle might not be there to actually cross that threshold.
Yes. So sometimes people are right there, sometimes it's just exposing. I think there's that type of person who's like right there and they just need a little help to get over the line to what they want, and sometimes, like in workshops, I love to do workshops. I like to go into a company and help, maybe on work-life balance a little bit, that's beneficial to the company because when their employees have better work-life balance, they get better. Yes, they get better, performance and return within the organization. But it's like exposing people to the fact that sometimes even the first step is just exposing them to the possibility of the fact that there actually can be, I say better balance. I think this work-life balance, that's a whole nother conversation. I think that's a myth. Like that statement, that's a whole nother conversation.
Harmony, not
yes,
balance.
I do like harmony better for sure. So this feeling of better balance, I think, is more attainable. Like, how do you want to, how do you want to feel better? Do you need more peace? Do you need more organization? Like, what are you looking for? And that's how I like to help people start with that. But just introducing people to the concept, first of all, that it can be different and better is like, first of all, sometimes the big, like light bulb. Yes. Aha. For some people, so people, I encounter people at different parts of the path. You know what I mean? Like some people are there like, whoa, wait, like not everybody feels like I feel every day. Like you can actually choose something different and do things differently. You know what I mean? And helping people and learning this like self-love and, all of these things that I like to teach. I mean, I want people to feel empowered. You know what I mean? People say, oh, do you like to work with clients for, life? Like, do you work with people forever? And it's like a yes and no for me because sometimes it's a, well, I want to empower you to go off and do things on your own to where you don't necessarily need me. But I also know like I'm up leveling and growing all the time. So if you are too, you know what I mean? Then we may be on a long path together for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It just depends on what they're looking for. If they're just looking to get to like this ladder rung or whatever, you know what I mean? Then they may get that and then they're good. They're off, doing that and doing that in their life. But if they're looking for the next step and I'm constantly staying, a step or two ahead, then we may have a really long relationship of like helping one another. And, and I think everyone that I work with helps me,
That's
just as much, if not
secret.
more, than I help them.
That's the absolute secret about coaching
Yes.
and speaking.
Yes.
I learned that by becoming the teacher, I had to become the very best student I could to not be a fool.
Totally.
And it was like, oh, that's the easy way to motivate me to study. Because here's what I learned about me. I'm more willing to do something for you than I am for myself. I just know that about my personality.
Yes.
Well, instead of fighting to learn how to do things for myself, how about just learn how to motivate me to do something better for you?
Yes.
And what I found is that pushed me further and further down this exploratory path. Like,
yes.
As an example, if I'm doing it for me, I might be lazy to ask that next question. If I'm doing it for you, I'm frantically looking for the question that is the outlier.
And I think too, when we're in roles of mentoring others, and I suspect this is the same for you, but I'm going to just clarify it a little deeper, just for clarity purposes, I guess. I love learning this, learning that, like different philosophies and all that, where it really like learning to do the work, not just have the knowledge to pass along to people whose paths I encounter, but yes, the experience that like, I don't only know how to tell you how to do this, but like I've had to do these things myself, and doing them is what's gotten me to move forward. Like I can stay here and, you know what I mean, tell them all what to do, but my actual doing it is where I have the gems, I think, to relay and to understand their perspective and be like, okay, so this is where you're really struggling. That's not exactly the same as where I was really stuck trying to do this, but like, let me share what happened to me. And that might like, let's see how you feel about that. Does that unlock anything for you? Does that create a light bulb? Like, how can we take my experience or like, someone else that I had the same conversation with, like his or her experience was this, like to bring that all together and help the person, synthesize, like we talked about, what's best for them. It's not just me saying, you do that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really it's like co-creating and helping them make decisions, you know what I mean? And creating the space for them to like think on their own and feel on their own, and empowering them to know that the right answer is really like within them. I'm just trying to help them find it. It's not always someone giving them. And I think that's where a lot of people are looking for that. Like, what's the class I should take, the book the one that's like the answer. And it might be the answer, but if you don't like implement it the right way for yourself, it doesn't always give you the outcome that you're looking for.
I think a lot of times we used to live in a society where we had to come up with the right answer.
Yeah.
Now we live in a society where the answers are everywhere. So you got to learn to ask the right questions. And that's a big transition. But the reason that I like working with high performing people is because they are doers. There's something out there called an ask hole. And it's somebody that will ask and ask and ask and not take action.
Never do anything.
Yeah. The truth is you can go read all the books that you want. You don't really need, like, there was a point in time where it was like kind of illegal or people couldn't read. Yes. But we're still here. We evolved to where we are. Yes. So it must mean that somebody was out there doing, building, growing something. And it used to be apprenticeship based. But when books weren't there, it was like, I'll take you
hands on. Well, let's do this together.
Right. And that's why I like working with high performers, because they also allow for the feedback that we allow for their feedback of going, well, I tried that and it didn't work. Cool. At least the ship's moving in the water.
Yes.
Figuring out how to get that billion-pound thing to start up again is the hard part.
Yes.
Making a course correction along the way is easy. That's what the whole purpose and the destination that you want. And that's what you're getting the clarity on from the beginning anyway.
Yes.
Because that's self-awareness. Like, I believe that that flame, and I told you this the other day, that flame in Iconic, the number one reason that it's there is because that's the spark of divinity, in my opinion, inside of each human being. When that sucker comes alive in people, I get goosebump city, because I'm fulfilling my purpose. Because I know growing up, and we talked, I had so much potential. I wasn't willing to suffer, but in a couple things. I played baseball really, really well. I was willing to suffer there.
Yeah.
I like girls a lot. I was willing to suffer there. but I just wasn't willing to do it. And I realized having potential is nowhere close to enough. And I remember even a high school teacher saying, Chris has all the potential in the world. And I thought she was saying something nice about me. And what she was really saying is he's
not using it.
Right. He won't do the work. When I finally just committed to being the pig instead of the chicken in breakfast, like my ass is committed. I'm not going to say that life got better, but I became more secure in me as a human, no matter what life brought my way. That's what I want for other people. And that's what I believe that flame does for other people. It's like, nobody can steal that away from you once you know. Yes. It's like you said, once you see it, you can never unsee it again.
Yes.
What you choose to do with it, that's whether or not we get close or not.
Yes.
Because I enjoy people that keep pushing that envelope. The level of conversation is different. The dreams and desires are different. The willingness to not make excuses for self is different. And eventually what I've noticed with each person that does that on an individual level, over time, the conversation becomes more legacy driven. Like, what am I doing for society level? And that's my purpose in life, is to see leaders show up. And we talked about, like, it hurts my heart of what we're seeing our country become.
Yeah.
It's not at all what I was presented as a kid.
Yes.
It's not at all what I did to overcome and to become an honest person and do all the things that because I wasn't always that. We need to teach the next level, because within 10 years, like, you have one kid that's maybe 5 years away from being able to be in Congress.
Right.
You've got your youngest kid that's 14, 15 years. It's not long.
Yeah.
And all I know is at 50 years old, like, I don't know how I got here, because I remember 30. When somebody says 30 years ago, what do you think of?
Oh my gosh.
I think of 1980.
Yes. Yes.
No, that was 2000, 1995.
It's nuts. You know, I was recently, so my youngest is a high school senior, and we just recently, she plays lacrosse.
Okay.
And we, you know, they do this thing throughout the season where, like, the younger, like, town lacrosse organization, they bring, some of the young girls teams in to, like, watch the game and, like, play, at halftime on the field and so forth. And I recently said to one of my friends, like, one of the teams was there of the younger girls. And I said to her, I looked over, I'm like, why do all those moms look like they're not the same generation as us? I'm like, you think for a while, like, once you get over a certain age, we're all the same. And I think I felt that for a while, but I'm like, yeah, they definitely, like, they're probably 20 years younger than us now. Like, that was like, whoa. One of those moments that's a lot of time has passed, which is not a bad thing. Like, I don't have a problem with my, with my age or any of that, but I'm just like, wow, like, a lot of life has happened. Like, look where they are and the stage they're in.
Did anybody prepare you for it though?
No.
Like, I woke up one day and looked in the mirror and I go, what are those two things under my eyes? Right. They're bags. And I never would have thought I'm going into the store going, de-wrinkle cream.
Right.
What? So it just is what it is.
Yes.
And the weirdest part for me, our kids are now intelligent enough to have their own opinions about everything. That was a weird transition for me, because they got big, but I knew emotionally they still had not had a lot of experience, but they would talk so intellectually to us.
Yeah.
And we would say, no. And they would say, here are the 5 reasons why, yes. Yeah. And I would walk away from the conversation going, I think I was just sold by my own kid on what we're going to do. So that was the hardest one for me. Realizing that Kayla and Jonah and Spencer have, they're making their own choices now. That made me start to feel like I'm on that next level generation.
Yes.
It also makes for fun times looking at the 30 somethings with 3 kids or 4 kids,
Oh,
and they're
yes.
going a million miles an hour. And it's like,
Yes.
I'm really glad I don't have to do that part again.
And part of me feels like I see so much possibility there because like the mindset, the things that I did that I thought I had to do, that I look back and think I wish I could do differently. You know what I mean? At that point, that like what I think I can offer to someone, you know, or what just there's so much potential there. Like I've learned, you have too, I'm sure over the last 20 years, you know, say from 30 to now, like I'm 49, you know, from this 20-year span, like what I've learned about myself and what's possible and all that. I'm like, I feel like, oh my gosh, like that's part of the reason I feel like, I mean, I love in particular working with moms because I feel like I can relate to a lot of people, but there's this deepness, like mom guilt, there's certain things that I feel like moms feel and experience that I feel like what's good for you know women in general is not always good for the mom. You know what I mean? Like a person who's not a mom can benefit from advice, I think, that's like specific to moms, but I think advice that's specific to women in general does not always relate to moms. I guess if that's maybe a good way to explain it.
Sure.
And I feel like kind of what you said in this time frame of what we can teach them, I feel like part of, you know, legacy or whatever, you know what I mean, as you mentioned, is I feel like teaching the moms how to like be the best version of themselves and create whatever they want to create. I just feel like that's where I see the ripple effect that I can create because, you know, there were stages of my life where I was demonstrating people pleasing for my kids. And, you know, I had those light bulb moments and it's like, they learn more from what we do than what we say. And so I think just the more we can take some of this, you know, learning that we have and what, you know, I can and you can and other mentors and coaches, like what we can offer people. I just see the potential there in some of the personal development that goes along with this. Just when that gets spread down, like it can make such a difference in families and I don't know, the world. Like I think it can make such a difference.
Do you think that you're comfortable in your own skin?
Much more so now.
That's what that was the lead.
Yes.
That was so if you'd said yes, more than you were 20 years ago.
100%.
The thing that I love the most about becoming wiser, I'll leave it at that.
Yes.
I'm okay. Are you okay? Is that all right? All right.
Yeah.
I'm okay that we don't agree. I'm okay that you have an opinion about me. I'm okay. And part of it is and I've thought about this for a long time. Have you ever heard of memento mori?
No.
Okay, so it just means remember you're dead. They used to tell the Roman generals
that.
that.
Okay.
So they didn't get too high on their horse and
yeah,
hey, you're gonna die too.
Yeah.
But the reason that I say that is I think about death a lot. Now that I'm 50, it's inevitable that it's gonna happen. And so now there is a definite timestamp on my time every day. How do I choose to spend it?
Yes.
And am I going to choose to spend it worried about whether or not you judge me for blowing my nose in front of you or that I've made mistakes or whatnot? And my brain came up with the idea that the best thing that I can offer is just to be as honest as I can be while not harming other people. Because I feel like we grew up in an area, like I'm from the South, you're kind of sort of from the South. I grew up in an area where you didn't talk about any of the bad stuff.
You hide that part.
And you only put the plastic Jesus on, right? And that didn't help me. That actually confused me a lot. And so the best thing that we can do is with our kids, with our clients, with everybody that we run into, be the best version of who you are. And the best version of who you are is just be you.
Yes.
And if you're not there yet, it's okay. If we can shrink that part of the ego of having to be right, of having to be on top, you will naturally matriculate to the top of whatever you're supposed to do. And I think that's probably what you're helping people the most to do, because you have been there. You've done parenting well. You've done marriage well. You've done business well from an employee side, now from an entrepreneurial side. It's just going to say that you're going to do coaching well. You're an amazing networker, I understand, right?
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, that's the legacy part that like you finally just go, oh, And now I want to create some impact.
Yes.
That's
That's the real reason, I think, for the switch right there.
Yeah.
Is I believe that through the mentorship and coaching avenue versus, continuing to implement as I know I can make a bigger impact this way. I can touch more people this way. I can, I just, yeah, it's definitely about the impact for me.
I think it's beautiful. think
I
that's
love
so
that.
beautiful. If people wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way they could get in contact with you?
My
Digital business card.
Yes. Right. Instagram's probably I'm newer on social media and so forth. Instagram is good.
Okay.
Stacy A. Norris.
Okay. With a Y, no EY.
Just a Y. STACY A. Norris. That's the most simple place to find me.
Okay.
My website is fine too, Stacy-Norris.
Say it again.
Stacy-Norris.
Okay.
.com.
Okay. And there's a contact form on there if they want to reach out to you.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for the conversation. I love this.
It's fun. We'll do it again. I'll have you on the show again. You're getting ready to rip and shake some stuff up. And actually, so one of the cool things, you're local, right?
Yeah.
And I was talking about that the other day. You're doing some things locally.
Yes. Yes.
So I'd like to have you back on and kind of talk about that and create more awareness about that.
All right.
All right. Cool.
I would love it. Sounds great. Thank you.
Your kids okay?
Yes.
All right, cool. We'll see you in the trenches, everybody. Take care.
Yes.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand.
Hey friend, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to catch future casts. If you really enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it so others can benefit from it as well. I'll see you in the trenches.
Try to catch me howling at the moon.